Welcome, Guardians, to episode 277 of Destiny Massive Breakdowns. As always, I am your host, Kid Kutcha, and I am here today with yet another exciting weekly episode. I am fresh off just being like super unplugged this past weekend, touring the mountains of Vermont, doing obstacles, just blowing out my legs completely, going up and down these crazy mountains they have there. They don't make them like that in Central Texas, I'll tell you what. So I'm very excited to be sitting down for an extended period of time and just chillaxing. And this week, I'm very happy to welcome back to the show a guest that we had on last season to talk about hand cannons in PvP. And this week on the show, he's joining me to talk. We'll talk about hand cannons. We'll definitely do some of that.
Of course.
We'll also talk about some other guns. We're going to be diving into the weapons from the King's Fall raid, as well as a few other current PvP favorites for illPhysics. Physics, welcome back.
Yo, thank you so much, and I appreciate you and of course your folks inviting me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you let me keep bothering you, this might just become a thing.
I mean, I got time, man. I enjoy being here. Of course, love you, man. And just love what you and Merc have put together here. And I love talking about these weapons and just about Destiny 2 in general, of course. And, hand cannons.
Well, hey, appreciated and reciprocated. So I don't watch as many streams as I'd like to, but I do try to tune in every now and then. I caught a little bit of your King's Fall run, and that was super cool to get to see.
Yeah.
So it really took me back. It really took me back in time.
Yeah, definitely.
To watch you guys.
King's Fall was my first. It was my first raid in Destiny 1, so I was super excited whether, we ended up getting it done or not, but I was just super excited to have it back, to be going for these weapons again. They did it right.
Yeah, those crazy King's Fall mechanics. They were pretty crazy for Destiny 1, and they brought them back and they just added a little extra layer of crazy on
a little
top.
extra. Exactly. Most definitely. War Priest, everybody. War Priest.
Gosh.
Holy.
Well, for anybody who's looking for, an extended encounter by encounter breakdown or talk about, general loadouts and stuff, the Podcast versus Enemies, the Massive Breakdowns show for PvE fans, did like a 4-hour episode on the raid. So we're not going to do that today. This is, in theory, going to be a fairly tight episode. And we're going to try to dive through some guns and talk about a few other weapons that I know that you're enjoying and that maybe have some relevance for the sandbox today. Yeah, and so I think we'll just get to it. Before we get to it, a quick thank you to our sponsors. As longtime listeners will know, Destiny Massive Breakdowns is sponsored not by any particular product or company, but by you, the listener, and your fellow Guardians. So big, massive thank you to these Guardians. These patrons give on a truly massive level every single month. So a special shout out to Sylv, the Shazzle, Impetus, Starscream, Binary Wolf, ZenSoCal, Blackhammer Tech, Askian Monk, Deacon, and This Moment. Thank you so much for your generous support. Thank you to all of our ongoing patrons for continuing to support Destiny Massive Breakdowns through all the ups and downs of Destiny 2 itself, as there are many every single year. It's never the same game season to season. So, I appreciate everybody sticking with us as we play the game that we have and look for the fun that there is to be had in Destiny 2. And there's a lot. Exactly. There's a lot every single season. So, and we do have some new patrons to thank. I'll be coming back around to that at the end of the episode here to say thank you to some new patrons. Say thank you for a very, very kind new review that we have. So we'll circle back. For the moment, let's not even waste any time, get into any tangents. I know people probably want to ask me about, this trip that I had to Vermont, the obstacle course racing world championships. And all I can say is it is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. There were race courses up and down a mountainside. There were a lot of crazy Ninja Warrior style obstacles. There were world-class athletes doing world-class athlete things. running like, a 2-mile obstacle course up and down a mountainside in 15 minutes. Yeah, sure. That happened.
Wow.
We watched that happen.
Wow.
I didn't do that. I think I took like an hour and a half on that 2-mile course. So it's,
that still sounds pretty crazy to me personally.
It was wild. So it was a ton of fun. I'd be happy to answer questions from folks about that in Discord or on Twitter. I don't want to dive into it right here. Maybe I think this weekend I'll be doing a big spreadsheet update. I'll probably stream that. Ask me about it then. Stay tuned for that, and we'll come back to that topic. Physics. You've been having some stream issues, I heard. How's troubleshooting that going?
Oh boy. I mean, streaming is hard, man.
Yeah.
It's just it's a beast. And then anybody that is lucky, blessed enough to have a great ISP provider, particularly folks that, have fiber, for folks that are not in the States, public utilities are pretty much a monopoly. So if you don't have fiber in your location, you just don't have fiber in your location. And it's probably just not going to happen in any, for most folks, just in general. So you have the ISPs, you have the internet service providers that are there, and that's it. So, just having to deal with Spectrum. I know a lot of folks have been working with Spectrum to get a clean, because it's not just about getting your speeds, right? It's about getting that clean, noise-free signal, because streaming is it's a direct feed of audio and video, and that's a chunk of data every second, right?
Yeah.
So, just been kind of working through that. Me, I'm not the type of person to get down about it. Of course, we all get frustrated and that sort of thing, but I just work through it. So much of the last week and a half has been kind of just working through that. But at the same time, I've been kind of like updating a couple things, like, in audio and also with the video as well. So, I've been busy. I mean, it's a full-time job, and it certainly was a full-time job even when I wasn't able to stream. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I think we are just about back to where we need to be, and I'll probably stream right after this. So
very nice. Yeah, it is a heard, seen, and felt. Dealing with that is crazy at times.
It's crazy. I mean, I tell people, I didn't know anything about audio video whatsoever. It's not my forte, right? Biomedical engineering, math, science, in that sphere. I could do that all day. But audio video, I was never that guy. I never had those experiences, those perspectives. So, coming in and just learning all this stuff fresh, we're talking about mics, we're talking about mic conditioning, we're talking about video, we're talking about bit rates, we're talking about streaming, we're talking about connecting everything, hardware, and then just making sure that everything is compatible down to like the bit rate on audio, and I mean, none of that stuff. And then let's not even talk about the nuances and kind of like the nitty gritty stuff that then you have to go and look, you have to look for some guidance from someone that's already doing it at a high level, right?
Yeah.
Or you dive into Google, and, I would say about 70% of the information you're getting from Google is either not up to date or just inaccurate. So you've got to, sift through all of that in order to find that gold. And then, once you do, you just kind of lock down those settings, make sure that you document it. But it's been a rewarding challenge, but it's been a challenge, and sometimes, of course, frustrating, but it's been rewarding for sure. And it's nice to look back on the VOD or to hear folks that have been there for a while noticing those changes, hopefully upgrades. It's been rewarding to see the progress, to see the benefits to the channel. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So there is a topic that if we have time that I want to circle back on with you here, and we'll just see how the flow goes for this show, because I want to talk about the weapons first and foremost. And if we have time, I do want to circle back, unrelated to anything we've said so far, to talk a little bit about how you're feeling about the Crucible this season. What you're doing as far as like scrims and your I think physics labs.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yep.
And I recently had the chance to sit down and talk to Glow for an extended period of time, and we talked about scrims and how he does things and how his crew kind of works as far as that goes.
Literally his crew.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what everybody calls stuff.
Yeah, true. It's all that branding, right?
I know this is also something that you've been doing for a long time, and so I'm hoping we can take a few minutes toward the end of the show and maybe circle back and just kind of talk about your perspective and the value you see in that and where you see that going with
of course,
with the Crucible. All right. With that said, let's for real now. dive right in to talking about some weapons. King's Fall delivered some crazy, crazy guns. Now these, like aesthetically, these guns are some of the most unique weapons that Destiny's ever delivered. Like this was true in Destiny 1. They were just like completely different from anything else in terms of the sights, the physical appearance of the models. And that Destiny 2, they've really kind of carried that over
and stepped it up, in my opinion, as well. Just look at the skin, look at the texture, look at how it's moving. It's beautiful. They've definitely stepped it up even more for this high res Destiny 2 here, right?
Yeah, they're a very cool looking set of weapons.
Agreed.
And you're agreeing. So I wanted to ask what your take was, because I feel like they can be a little bit divisive because they are so different. Some people are going to look at it and be like, this thing's ugly. I don't care how good it is. I don't care what perks it has. I can't run this.
But then they shade their Titan that way. So I don't, to each their own.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know. So, all right. So we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
This is a cool looking set of weapons. And they brought them back with like the craziest perk combos.
Yep. It's wild. Like the thing that stood out to me as soon as, they first started dropping, and then we saw what the actual perks were in D2 Gunsmith. The fact that they just continue to double down on that PvE power fantasy. Like we got incandescent plus EP explosive payload. We got incandescent plus Firefly.
Right.
I believe that's a combination as well, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Is that one of the combinations on one of them? Sorry, I can never remember.
We'll go through them all in a bit.
We'll go through it. But
there's a lot.
But the point is, you got double explodey.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. Really, really cool. And especially for folks that like to do content solo, that's what I like as well. The fact that Bungie is continuing to craft weapons and drop weapon perk combinations that allow people to just have that power fantasy solo, and just it's crazy in threes. If you got 3 and 6 people with all these crazy perk combinations, fine. But a lot of people play solo, and so for them to get a taste of just being an absolute badass solo with some of these perk combinations, it's just really, really cool. That's the first thing that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, I saw these drop, and I think the first thing I said to myself was like, thank goodness I was planning to like redo the damage calculations on the spreadsheet this season. Because I can't.
Because you're getting double damage perks.
I literally can't do it on the current version of the spreadsheet. Yeah. And even when folks are listening to this for the first time, if you're listening to it on the first day that it drops, still probably can't do it in the spreadsheet. Shortly after this episode, I'm hoping to implement a completely like redone version of the damage calculator that will allow you to add 2, maybe even 3 different damage perks together. So we'll see how far I can get on that this weekend. It's going to be a multi-hour project, maybe a multi-day project. But yeah, they really made this complicated. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yo, same. I mean, it's more content for us to like dig into, right?
Yeah.
It's more numbers. Like a lot of us are numbers people. And so just on a side note as well, I know that the D2 Gunsmith himself, the homie Dre, the dev for D2 Gunsmith, is taking a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah.
And but I was really looking forward to that. What was it, like a range weapon fall off calculator that you guys were putting together? That seems so cool.
Yeah, so that
seems so cool.
He was starting to work on bringing in like the time to kill calculations and stuff. You can still see it out there on some of the hand cannons. It was added in. Damage fall off and stuff he had already added in. I can't take any credit for that. I think Ivan Karamazov did a lot of the math.
Of course.
That went into that. So credit to him and to anyone else involved that I don't know about. There are a lot of fantastic folks doing good work in the Destiny community right now. And
most definitely.
Dre is one of them. And I am very sorry to see him go. Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to, at some point, take it aside because we were, of course, using his website.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he understates it. Look,
It's a bummer.
Love Dre. Dre's a friend. He understates it. I've seen him kind of understate his role and the role of D2 Gunsmith in the community. And he says anybody can do, what I'm doing. There are websites out there that are doing what I'm doing, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't know those websites.
Yeah.
That are doing it and in such a very friendly user interface as well, just pleasant and straightforward. So, like I said, big love to the homie Dre. Hiatus or not, just super appreciated, with me and amongst my community. So,
yeah, I guess I can't overstate the value I get from it. And for specifically one of the things he expressed is that he's not really interested in selling it because the first thing someone is going to do is go slap ads all over it, which just kind of defeats the purpose of one of the things that makes it special. One of the many things that makes it special is it is ad free and very fast, in part because you're not waiting for a billion ads. So I don't know. It's just a frustrating situation. It makes me concerned, that there may be other folks who might have been swept up in one of these ban waves who didn't deserve it. I don't know what can be done about that. Hopefully that's something that Bungie is taking a very, very hard look at and making sure that these kind of automated ban waves are not catching up people who don't deserve it. I don't want to harp on it too much, but it is a loss to the community.
Yeah, 100%.
I guess really all I can say is I think I said this on Twitter, but Dre's going to be missed, but I can understand and respect why he feels this is time for him to step back and take a break, and I get it.
Yep. 100% valid. Yep.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, he knew. He's appreciated, man.
Yeah.
He's appreciated so much.
All right. Well, to kind of circle back to where we were here, we have to soldier on. Let's talk about some of these specific guns here and start diving through. Because we've got a lot of crazy perk combos to go through. And I usually like to start with the primary weapons on this show. Make sure they get their fair share of time because they're going to get the most use. We'll talk about the specials, and then we'll touch on the heavy at the end. But obviously, being a PvP show, it's just not quite as relevant as the rest of the guns. So if it only gets a minute or so, oh well. But yeah, so I wanted to ask, do you want to start with the hand cannon, or do you want to?
I said that, man. Nah, let's let him wait. Let's let him wait. Yeah. Because I'm gonna get excited about that.
This is Tony doing this to you guys. It's not me. Well, let's go to the scout rifle.
Okay.
I've been in the scout rifle mode. Doom of Chelchis is the scout, and this is one that it's a 180. So for listeners, if you heard the recent episode with Defy talking about scout rifles, 180s are one of those archetypes that is not super great on its own, but super responsive to any kind of damage buff at all, making it very easy to get surprisingly fast kills. So that's kind of the thing to keep in mind with this weapon if you're taking it into the Crucible. It's a 180 precision scout rifle. It's void. Looking at the stats, it does have lower stability and zoom than average. Lower stability, obviously, generally would be a worse thing here. Lower zoom on a scout, though, means it's got 2.0 zoom, which I would actually count as a benefit in this case.
Agreed.
Because scouts get pretty unwieldy on a lot of maps, especially now that they've shifted the weighting.
Don't get me started.
Boy! All right, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. This is not going to be the Destiny Mapsive breakdowns.
Mapsive breakdowns. Y'all catch that?
Yeah. The dad jokes are strong with me right now. I haven't gotten a lot of sleep this week, so I'm just dropping them. So, looking at what damage buffs will do for you on Doom of Chelchis, Radiant is kind of my go-to, first check. Will this change the time to kill? And it will. Your optimal time to kill for Doom of Chelchis is 1 second flat with 3 crits and 1 body at 10 resilience. 1 crit and 4 body will kill in 1.33 seconds. So that's a 5 shots. 6 shots, it's going to be 1.67 seconds. So, obviously crits, pretty important on a scout rifle, as you might expect.
But I'm looking at that, and is it just me, or like missing 2 crits? Basically, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. At 0.33 difference between the optimal and the is that a big deal? 0.33 on a scout rifle.
I mean, they're both so bad competitively speaking.
That's okay. Fair.
The precision scouts, the big thing I think they have going for them is that they're so easy to use. You know, it's really easy to hit crits with them for the most part. So it's a weapon that I think is pretty forgiving for a newer player, for somebody who's not a hardcore PvPer or even like a super casual PvPer. They can be very easy to use. Now, Radiant does actually make them competitive. It'll give them a 3 crit kill in 0.67 seconds. So it makes them...
How long does Radiant last again? Just off of the Radiant dodge, for example?
I think it depends a little bit on what you've got as far as your fragments, but you're looking at like 7 to 11 seconds or so.
Okay.
A pretty decent amount of time, especially as a hunter, given you can activate it at will.
Of course.
You know, you can kind of work with that. So it does give you a pretty darn fast time to kill. It makes it a super long range hand cannon. In my mind, is kind of the way I look at it. It's still going to be unwieldy up close. That 2.0 zoom is going to make it a little difficult to make those 20 to 30 meter fights work well for you. But it's also got Focused Fury, which is a perk I'm going to mention a lot because it's basically on every single one of these guns. They just really want us to hit crits. So Focused Fury activates after hitting 50% of the magazine as precision hits. It grants a 20% increased damage buff for 11 seconds after activation.
Substantial, by the way.
It is a big damage buff. And so that will also give you that same 3 crits, 0.67 second combo at all resiliences. So, you know, obviously, and that's kind of, you know, a direction you could go with this weapon is leaning hard into Radiant to make it work, and then building up Focus Fury to kind of give you an extra damage buff. So you're pretty consistently hitting 3 crit kills.
Yeah. And the great thing about Focus Fury is, you know, it's just magazine based. It's not time based, right? So if you really pace your shots, hit those shots. I mean, the only downside to Focus Fury, I suppose, on Doom is that there's 16 in the magazine.
Yeah, it's
right?
a lot.
And so you're trying to hit a lot of crits. You're trying to hit half of those as crits effectively in order to proc the back. I mean, it's not necessarily even the back half of that magazine, because you can once you get Focus Fury, it's just up for 11 seconds whether you reload or not. Right. So, I mean, there is of course a benefit to it if you kind of map a play style around that. But Focus Fury, I think Patty Cakes was trying to field questions on Twitter about underrated perks a while back, and I think I might have talked to you about this when we were talking about Crisis Inverted maybe last time. The fact that I feel like Focus Fury is a bit of an underrated perk for people who specialize in their weapons to the degree that they can get those precision hits. On a hand cannon, I feel like it's heavily underrated. Because again, on Crisis Inverted, I think there's 10 bullets in the magazine. All you have to do is literally hit 4, and then you're done. You know, Focus Fury starts proccing. So I said it before, you get a 3-tap on the first Guardian, somebody slides out, which has happened to me. I've got clips. Somebody slides out, I get the next hit, and then for the second and third headshots, ideally, on that second Guardian, I'm already procced Focus Fury. I'm already hitting 86 to the head instead of 70 on a 140. So
yeah, I knew as a Hawk Moon lover that Focus Fury was going to be a perk that appealed to you. One of the things that I do like about it is it really does encourage you to do the thing that you're supposed to be focused on doing with the weapon.
Exactly, on a precision weapon where crits are. You know, like we're talking about auto rifles, sure, hitting those crits, but nobody necessarily considers auto rifles so much as a precision weapon, as much as like a slower rate of fire weapon, basically. You know, a scout rifle, a hand cannon, things like that. But yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so it's it definitely works. So as far as perk combos go, I know I put together some notes. You'd kind of talk to your community about some combos they like on some of these guns, and I guess first up, just looking at the magazines and the barrel perks, those first 2 columns. For me, generally on a scout rifle, like the biggest thing that I care about is trying to amp up the handling, if at all possible, because range is irrelevant. You've got 2.0 zoom, like you've got 70 odd meters of range when you're aiming down sight. So it's just, you can tank the range as hard as you want to, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
But handling is just terrible. It's just really bad.
Yeah. If it doesn't have snapshot on it, like handling is terrible. I agree.
So would you be looking for anything else on this other than just like say arrowhead break, or what else? Fluted barrel is the other one that I always look for.
Fluted is I know, I love it. People got to keep in mind on these hand cannons, anything that has barrels, and then also flared magwell, you get stats. You get crazy stats. You get 20 stats on fluted, 15 to handling, 5 on stability.
Yeah.
People sleep on that for Austringer, even though I know that more and more folks are coming around to it. Another one, flared magwell, 15 stat points. Really, really important when we talk about Zaouli's Bane later on with the really, really slow reload. So that brings you back around to Doom. I'd probably rock fluted. I'm sorry, not fluted. Flared magwell.
Yeah.
Because again, you get 15 to the reload, plus 5 to the stability, and I probably would, like you said, rock fluted on the barrel as well. Not just about the 15 stat points, but their stat points exactly where I would want them with regards to handling, and then a little bit of extra stability for those accurate follow up shots to try to get those headshots.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. Yeah, and then I like a handling masterwork on a scout. I'll accept the reload if everything else is great. I don't care too much about range and stability again because of the zoom. So let's talk about the fun columns here.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to keep this episode tight. So I'm gonna hand it to you. Tell me what you're looking for on this gun for PvP, for PvE, and then I'll fill in anything that I'm looking for that you didn't say.
All right, I'll try to be sharp about it. Let's see. For PvE, Repulsive Brace, I know I mentioned this before.
Yeah.
I just love the Void 3.0 fantasy in PvE with regards to getting your volatile rounds and just the synergy just in general that you can build into just a Void weapon on a Void subclass. We're talking about Harmonic Siphon on the helmet, a helmet mod to drop some orbs of light when you get those double kills. So anything to continue to build into that power fantasy on Void would be cool. So Repulsive Brace, of course, is a perk on the end. Defeating a Void debuff target grants an overshield, so maybe you can push through enemies a little bit more effectively. Not saying it's a crazy perk or anything like that, but I'm just saying it's the one that first stuck out to me with regards to the Void 3.0 fantasy that I really, really enjoy whenever I'm doing PvE on Hunter in particular. Otherwise, so we said we're starting with, I think, PvE. Otherwise, it's that Firefly Dragonfly combination.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that we're not just talking about Dragonfly that can get an enhanced version of it, right? The enhanced version of it is just precision final blows, create an elemental damage explosion, and it improves reload as well. So that's what the enhanced benefits of it are. But I guess maybe, let me see, precision kills create an elemental damage explosion. So maybe it creates a larger explosion. I'm not sure.
So as my understanding is, it creates 2 explosions. Then they just kind of happen.
Oh, okay.
They just kind of happen at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah. So then combine that with Firefly.
Yeah.
And you get, even more explodey things. Also keep in mind that Firefly, which I only recently found out, I didn't even realize that Firefly gave you a reload benefit as well on top of the explosion benefit. So the fact that enhanced Dragonfly gives you improved reload as well, that doubles down on what's happening with Firefly. Then on top of that, keep in mind that Dragonfly is about to get a buff soon.
Yeah.
It's about to get a buff. The Dragonfly spec is about to be rolled into just the Dragonfly perk itself. So Dragonfly perk itself without anything else, no mod. The mod is disappearing, is going to just get baseline better, which also means you can add in like a minor spec or whatever else that you want to add as far as clearing up ads in PvE. So those are the ones. Of course, EP is on my mind as well as far as explosive payload and maybe some frenzy as well. If you really want to think about it, maybe some focus fury if you want to build into that. But really, it was that Firefly Dragonfly combination that stuck out to me for sure. And then as far as PvP, kind of the same thing. I like to see things go explodey. I really like Chromatic Fire with Ace of Spades. It's still heavily slept on. You just straight up get 2 kills and people hold hands just as much as they did in year 1, in my opinion, right now. So for PvP, double explodey is just dope. And otherwise, frenzy, of course, in PvP. If you're scout rifling, you're generally at a safer distance, which means it's more likely you're going to proc that frenzy. So, and then we can never really sleep. I think people will sleep a little bit on Vorpal as well, considering primary weapons get, what is that, a 40% buff on primary weapons, 40 to 50% in PvP with Vorpal. So that on a scout rifle, which is, of course, higher impact than, your general primaries, is just, something that folks might want to keep in mind. So
yeah,
those are the ones that were on my mind.
Yeah, Vorpal is 40 to 50%. I think it varies by weapon type. That's one of those things that's always in my radar to go and like hammer out which weapon type is doing exactly what bonus, but it's just never been quite important enough. The main thing is it does a heck of a lot.
Yeah, true.
Good to have on the radar.
Keep in mind as well that, we haven't even talked about the fact that we have runneth over as well, especially in PvE, where you're more likely, I guess in PvP as well, but in PvE you're more likely gonna be next to another teammate to get that increased magazine, that overflowed magazine, which of course ends up working out for quite a few of these perk combinations. So
yeah, runneth over is good to keep in mind. I think there's one weapon in specific where it kind of caught my eye as a great option for PvE. I'm sure there are probably a lot of other reasons to love it. The one reason I have to be wary of it is if you are using Focused Fury, be aware your magazine may occasionally suddenly be larger than you expect.
Are you sure? Have you tested that, by the way? Because I think because if I remember correctly, an overflowed magazine, I think you're still having to hit only the same amount of crits.
Oh, is it?
It's based on
okay.
I'm about 60% sure, 70% sure that you just have to hit the original magazine size half.
I'm going to be honest.
Times divided by 2.
Didn't even occur to me to test that. Didn't even think about that, not doing it. That's a great question. All right. Well, somebody out there knows the answer, and I'm sure we'll hear about it
quickly. Somebody, as soon as this episode's over, I'm sure of it. Somebody just at me on Twitter. Just add me on Twitter.
There we go. All right. Well, you covered a lot of the good stuff, man. So I don't have a whole ton to add. I do want to mention adaptive munitions for PvE in that third column is just a phenomenally useful perk for any kind of in-game PvE where you're having to fight multiple shields. So being able to get those massive damage buffs against the off-color shields is just really, really helpful. And I also like it as a pairing with Repulsor Brace specifically, actually, where you can kind of pair in taking down shields, throwing void debuffs, getting over shields on yourself.
Yeah.
It feels like a good play style there where you can kind of constantly be doing the things you need to do. That said, double explodies is just like, how can you not? Eye of the Storm also I want to give a nod to in the fourth column, especially if you are someone who is struggling to hit those crits. If you are a newer player, if you are a player who is not as good at the Crucible, but you like precision scout rifles, Eye of the Storm is going to make your life a lot easier. Every single episode, I feel like I say something good about it, so I'm not going to harp on it now, but it's a great perk. Really, the only perk that I would like hardcore stay away from on this gun is rangefinder, just for any content at all. I would never ever want rangefinder. Just
what's the point?
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
But what I will say is that rangefinder, this is the last thing I'll say about a rangefinder and Eye of the Storm. Those two perks generally on most weapons are S tier.
Yeah.
On this particular weapon, they're kind of just mid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, versus everything else that's in that column. It's not as if they aren't very good, especially for their intended purposes. Rangefinder in particular, just like you said, is kind of just worthless on this one. Eye of the Storm, I could at least see somebody, maybe pairing Eye of the Storm with Firefly to ensure they're getting those headshots to proc the Firefly, etc. So interesting.
I think there's a case there, but for most people, it's probably not going to be worth it in the face of explosions or Focused Fury. And Explosive Payload too, I'll second that one. It's just a phenomenal perk for every type of content on this weapon. It's a massive damage buff in PvE on every single shot. And for PvP, it's just really annoying.
yeah, you said it exactly right.
So, and occasionally actually super useful too. Somebody ducks behind cover when they're absolute. If they don't duck far enough, well.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is an anti-flinch meta where people are actually able to substantially build into flinch resistance. I wish we could do the same with airborne effectiveness, by the way. But anyway. So
I hear you.
EP, serves some degree of a benefit. And let's keep in mind as well, what was it? I can't remember the name of the Forsaken Gambit scout rifle. Do we remember the name of that one?
The Scout Servant Leader?
No, Forsaken.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm sure somebody knows exactly what I'm talking about. It also got EP, and I believe was it a 200? I think it might have been a 200 RPM. EP on scouts it's kind of oppressive. It's really difficult to actually shoot back against that. So keep that in mind as well. It's a high impact weapon that also shoots 180. And if we're talking about the Forsaken Scout Rifle, 200 RPM, if I remember correctly. So it's just EP in your face, high impact flinch. Oh man, it's a flinching machine in PvP.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. Let's talk about Smite of Merain next then. So this is an adaptive pulse rifle. It's one of those archetypes that I always like how it feels. It always feels like it's just on the cusp of being really good in PvP, but it's not quite there at the moment. That said, there are a lot of ways that you can bring it there right now. And it's the great thing about adaptive pulse rifles is that they just feel really good, in my opinion. And Smite of Merain's a kinetic. Good to keep in mind the slot if you're looking for a kinetic pulse rifle. This is a pretty decent one. It's got basically completely average stats for the archetype, aside from the airborne effectiveness, which is a base 21, so it is going to be pretty high for a pulse rifle. If that's something that you're concerned about. As for me, I'm going to keep my boots on the ground.
Probably, I think that's a good idea.
It's there. It's there. So. For time to kill, the optimal is 0.93 seconds with 6 crits and 1 body. So you're just off from the 2 burst, which is wildly fast. There are ways to get there. Doesn't take a lot.
You always scare me. Whatever you say, that phrase you say all the time, there are ways to get there. That is scary for a borderline competitive PvP player like myself.
Yeah,
it's crazy fast, but it's just off of that 2 burst. But there are ways to get there.
Yeah, man, it's this gun's got options. So the accuracy adjusted time to kill is at 1 second. That's 5 crits and 3 bodies. Something that I think most people can do with the pulse rifle pretty consistently. If you're just spraying body shots, it's 1.47 seconds. Not as bad as a scout, but still pretty darn slow. Not likely to work out for you. And damage buffs on pulse rifles can get hard to math, which is why I'm super glad that we've got this handy calculator to do all of that for us. So Radiant is all you need. As with so many guns, Radiant is all you need to make this a 2 burst machine. It is 6 crits with a 10% damage buff. So it is difficult to hit, and yeah, it's punishing. You have to be really on point, but it is doable, and it is doable up to 10 resilience. So you've got some other damage perks on here. Gut Shot I talked about with Mossy a few episodes back. We talked about all the weapons that roll Gut Shot in and whether it does anything on them. For this weapon, it really just doesn't do a whole lot for you, aside from penalize your aim assist pretty significantly.
Yeah.
So if you hate aim assist, then go with Gut Shot. But otherwise, you've got Focus Fury again. Will give you that 0.6 second 2 burst. It'll do it with 5 crits and 1 body because it's a 20% damage buff. That said, you got to be hitting a lot of headshots with a pulse rifle. So
yeah. And this is something I'll also ask. So you say average stats on this one. Yeah. As 50 stability. This is one weapon where I feel like the stability is wonky on. If it were me, I'd build into stability on this weapon, because at least on M&K, I don't know how it feels on controller. I don't know how it feels for anybody else, and I haven't really talked to anybody about this. But when I first fired off the gun a little bit in PvE after I got it day one, it just felt like it bounced a lot more versus other pulse rifles, just the average pulse rifle that I might. So, for example, let me see, the Syncopation. Yeah. Syncopation is also adaptive, correct?
It is, yeah. So Syncopation is just on base stats, it's just a better gun. It's got 9 more points of base stability. It's got 6 more points of base aim assist, 9 more points of base recoil direction. So it's just everything about Syncopation in terms of the raw stats is just better, except for the airborne effectiveness. Yeah. The other thing that's wonky about Smite is it's a lower zoom pulse. So the people who like lower zoom pulses are going to like Smite more. People who are used to the longer zoom pulses, Syncopation has 1.9 times zoom. Smite has 1.7. That's going to be felt in your effective distance and in the recoil. So that's a great call out to be aware of, because it will feel different than the other pulses.
Yeah, and I would agree that it definitely does. Not in necessarily so much a horrible way or anything like that, but it's something that I felt.
Yeah, well, good call out. So the 2 damage perks on this gun that make it really crazy are Swashbuckler and Adrenaline Junkie. And so these are obviously, you're going to have to lean hard into either a melee or a grenade heavy play style, where you're getting significant uptime with those abilities, or just a load of kills for melee. That said, obviously once you have it up, you can kind of chain kills to keep it going. Either of those at ×5 will allow you to get a 0.53 second time to kill with 5 crits. So just a bit less than 2 full bursts. It'll make the 2 burst kill pretty easy. You can 2 burst in 0.6 seconds with 4 crits and 2 bodies. So super achievable. And at worst, you can kill somebody in 1 second with either of those at ×5. So that requires either the melee or the grenade kill, depending on which perk you're going for. Obviously, in PvE, these are also going to be super effective at just giving you, that big chunk of extra damage on every shot. And you can guarantee the kills in PvE. PvP got to work a little more, but there are some freight trains out there who can get it done.
Well, I hesitated, as you said. In PvP, you got to try a little bit more. And I really hesitated. Just only a little bit, though.
Yeah,
only a little bit.
By try, I mean you got to run, a Titan.
Yo, kind of fast.
Or Shadebinder.
That, or Shadebinder, or a hunter. You could always drop that proximity knife, right? You could always throw that smoke. You get somebody smoked, and does Swashbuckler work for? Well, you'd have to get a kill with it, right?
Yeah, that's what makes it for a hunter. You almost have to. Like, you can finish people with the proximity knives, or you can run a weighted knife.
The heavy knife, I guess, is the play. Yeah. Does the heavy knife, the weighted knife, proc swash as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of crazy. Can the weighted knife as well get you radiant? I can't remember.
If you're running the fragment,
that's kind of nice.
Or the aspect or whatever.
Some people are really good with the weighted knife. I could see that pugilist's weighted knife, radiant swashbuckler. Like, that'd be kind of a cool build.
Yeah, it's for I tried to get good with the weighted knife for like a week, and then I was just like, man, this is hard. And I went back to my exploding knives, but.
Well, you're like me too. You're kind of gunplay heavy like myself, though.
Yeah.
Like your first thought is your guns. No matter even though you do use Le Monarch, but whatever. That's But still, that we'll call that gunplay.
Yeah. What happened is I spent the whole week not throwing any knives. And then like every game just kicking myself. Like, why did like every other gunfight, I was like, I could have thrown a knife. Like, why did I not?
Yeah.
Or I throw it at the exact wrong time.
I'm right there with you.
All my instincts
first thought
are
is
wrong.
not to throw it. Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. Which is, people will ask me why do I run Fan of Flames on Blade Barrage? Yeah, and it's just
why do you?
It's I know. It's the biggest reason, and the reason why I tell people this is true, is that I'm a shotgunner, right? So, because shotguns are so inconsistent, it's the easiest to run Fan of Flames to try to follow up, or at least get the chip damage on people. The proximity knife, it actually takes a second to explode, right? So if I'm trying to push somebody, I might end up trading. Whereas with Fan of Flames, it's just in all intents and purposes, it's hit scan. You take the damage immediately. So that's the reason why. That's
actually a really fantastic tip there. I've been shotgunning a lot more lately, and I like to prime with the proximity knives, but having a more reliable follow-up is always super useful. All right. What were we talking about? We're talking about a pulse rifle here. Let's go back to a pulse rifle.
I think we're moving on to the moving target in Eye of the Storm, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so what's the pick for you? And that's a super hard PvP pick to not go with.
True. And I'm probably leaning your way. I'm not a big fan of how this thing shoots and how that relates to that stability. I feel it, how it relates to consistently getting those headshots, just at base. And so if I was really going to put this on, I'd probably rock an enhanced moving target, enhanced Eye of the Storm for sure. It's not a gun that I would use seriously, certainly over something like Syncopation, which is honestly god tier and slept on still. People know about it, but I guess they just don't use it. So yeah, that's probably what I'd lean towards. Moving into PvE combos, if I'm allowed to kind of progress it here
let's
as well.
Just dive into it.
One thing I don't see up there, and I'll let you finish up the rest, is because of that stability buff that you get from it, the stats for all, one for all. I'm not sure how you're the numbers guy on this, so I'm not sure how that ends up changing things. I mean, especially in PvE, obviously. In PvP, you wouldn't necessarily be going for that, but I like how it ends up helping out with the stability. It feels very, very good. Once you proc those two together, it feels very, very good. Very nice pulse rifle. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is. This gun has it has so many just pairings that are just natural. What stats for all, one for all is one I probably gloss over too often. But yeah, for PvE, it just makes a ton of sense. Make the gun feel better. Make the gun do more damage. Mm-hmm. And stats for all is kind of a bunch of small little buffs that all add up to the gun just overall feeling a lot better. I also have to, of course, shout out Pugilist plus Swashbuckler. It's just kind of the straightforward, get more melee energy and better handling and more damage, and of course, Demo plus Adrenaline Junkie is just kind of a natural,
obvious,
straight up combo. I don't feel like I'm educating anyone saying that, but, it's there. It's on the gun. It's good. The only other perk that I guess that I would shout out here is probably, just making a note that this is a pulse rifle with Firefly, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You don't really see that very often, and so it's nice to have. This is a kinetic weapon, but you can deal a little solar damage. So if you hit kind of a low level red bar next to a solar shielded enemy, you can pop that solar shield with this gun. One of those little Bond moments for you, but that's about it. That's Smite of Merain. Well,
keep in mind it's kinetic. Just a side note, it's kinetic, so you could always put on chromatic fire.
Yeah,
get some additional solar explodey as well. Probably, I would think, build into this Firefly and chromatic fire, for example, and or Scorch. Any of those build into? I mean, I know it'll probably build into Ember of Tempering, which is you get recovery. It's a fragment on Solar 3.0, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know. And you end up getting stacks of recovery per solar weapon kill. I imagine it probably feeds into that, but I do wonder whether it feeds into Scorch. Yeah,
that's a question that I would have to probably run by Court. He's the king of damage stacking. And I don't know for sure how that interaction works. It doesn't come up in the Crucible, so it's one of those I get to sort of gloss over and leave for other people to figure out. But yeah, you can certainly get a lot of explodey combos going right there, and
definitely
throw a demolitionist in there just because more grenades.
Never a bad thing.
Let's talk about a hand cannon.
Okay, all right.
I think we've earned it at this point. I think everybody
we
listening
built up to it. Yeah, agreed.
Has earned it as well. They've sat through a scout rifle and a pulse rifle. Let's talk about Zaouli's Bane. Zaouli's Bane, first off, has a great name. It's fun to say. It's a 140 adaptive hand cannon. It's solar. For a adaptive hand cannon, it has what I would call fairly average stats. They're not bad,
agreed,
but they're not Ias Luna. They're not Palindrome. They're not your, fully maxed Austringer. They're just sort of, any old drop hand cannon stats. It does have 19 airborne effectiveness. Again, for the folks who are leaning hard into that, it's there. It'll help you get there faster. This is one of the most popular hand cannon types. I think everybody kind of is pretty familiar with the time to kill, but 3 crits is 0.87 seconds.
Sweet 0.87.
Yeah. 4 shots is 1 crit, 3 bodies, and 1.3. The body shot time to kill is 1.73. Hit your crits. Radiant will let you, I believe, to crit 1 body. Pretty much everybody, if memory serves. I didn't write that down for some reason. Somebody's probably going to write a review telling me how incompetent I am now. It's what it is. But I did write down a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, so Radiant will 2 crit 1 body up to 10 resilience. You can also do that with Focused Fury if you build it up like you were talking about earlier in the show. And Gut Shot Straight will also let you 2 crit 1 body, but only up to about 5 resilience. So it is by itself not a huge benefit, it's because again, of course, you're losing aim assist, and this gun doesn't necessarily have an excess of aim assist. It has a fair and reasonable amount for a hand cannon, but which some might say is too much, but
that's another conversation. Yeah. I'm rolling my eyes right now. That's another conversation for another day. I'll tell you that right now, because I'll get into it.
Yeah.
But I certainly not on a precision up close weapon that's punishing, even if you just hit 1 crit 3 bodies, right? Like if you miss a crit, it's punishing. So I'm not trying to give up aim assist for more body shots on a precision weapon in general, but certainly not a close quarters to mid range one either.
Yeah, so I will say the meme combo, this has been talked about. There are people out there doing it. Is Gut Shot plus Focused Fury. So if you do rack up your Focused Fury bonus while Focused Fury is active, you can 3 body any Guardian up to 10 resilience.
That's wild.
You have to boost the mag size, I think, to make it the most effective. If you boost the mag size, then you can 3 body 2 Guardians before you run out of bullets. Otherwise, I think you're going to be, a shot or 2 short. But yeah, it's there.
It's there.
You got to work for it. You're hitting all crits with less aim assist up to that point. So this is earned.
It kind of is, for folks to get into that fight, especially with this weapon. This weapon isn't, you just said it, it's kind of average. I mean, we'll continue to talk about it a little bit, but it's for the most part kind of average across the board. Now, back in the day when we didn't have stat monsters like Palindrome, this would be, better than average. It'd be probably, it wouldn't be top tier per se, but it'd be definitely better than average. It would be something that you would see quite often in the Crucible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they still got to hit the shots for the Focus Fury, right? They still got to hit those, what is this, magazine 10? So they still have to hit 4, out of those 10, and then, then they can go to town, of course. So I imagine it'd still be a solid hand cannon user.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's right, because it is 4 at 10, so you can still drop 2 Guardians even without a mag upgrade, but yeah, well, so that's kind of the what the damage buffs do, but talk to me about, what do we actually want on this gun?
It's interesting. I've gone back and forth. This is what rangefinder does for you, right? This is what rangefinder does for you. Rangefinder allows you to not think about the range as much, so you can put stats, and you can put stats into places where the hand cannon just operates better as a hand cannon. It operates better within its archetype. So when you have a weapon like Zaouli's Bane that has very average stats across the board and no rangefinder, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, because at that point I'm looking at it and I'm just like, man, am I really even going to take this in and put, I love the weapon, loved it in D1. Do I love it enough to just even take it into even quick play, which, quick play is skill-based matchmaking now. So that's basically tourney plays. But, to take it into the Crucible, into the casual Crucible, and even mess around with it for a little bit. So what would I want on it? I mean, it needs range. It needs range, 43 range, and I don't think I'd do anything but opening shot. There are obviously, explosive payload cult members out there, and explosive payload puts in work, but I'm not one of those folks. Unless it's Sunshot, for example, I'm generally not going to be flinching you. I'm just gonna 3-tap you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just gonna do my best. So it's gonna be opening shot right there. I don't know if there's nothing else in that column that appeals to me. So if I have opening shot, the only other two perks that interest me in the mag column are accurized rounds, and I talked about it before, like flared magwell. Flared magwells, I will just preach that on this gun. This gun has a ridiculously slow reload, not because it has a ridiculously slow reload, but also because of the reload animation. Just makes it more difficult to reload animation cancel. versus other hand cannons to immediately get that shot off. It drops down, so if anybody is not familiar with the reload animation on this one, which I like, by the way, just in general, as far as aesthetically, but it basically, the front half of the gun opens up, and then you reload it through, halfway down the barrel, and then, the front half of the gun flips back up, right? And so you have to wait for that entire animation to kind of finish. And then you're also just trying to, it's not a reload from the side, right? So you're also trying to, I'm trying to think about how to say this. You're also trying to, when you're trying to get that immediate shot off, you have to find the head again.
Yeah.
You have to find the head again at that point, because the gun is going to jerk a little bit, or at the very least, it's going to, the animation just, it's a little off-putting is what I should say. So I'm trying to get that reload up. That's definitely the worst thing. PvP wise, it's definitely the worst thing about this gun, is the reload. So, man, I might just go for flared magwell period for the +5 stability and +15 reload, because it's just so bad. Probably even, actually, I know for sure, because I messed around with it, even with hand cannon reloader on. And then on the barrel, probably range stability. So I'd maybe consider corkscrew, depending on how I was able to push with it and how serious I wanted to maybe get with the gun. But probably hammer forged or small bore, and I wouldn't consider anything that didn't give me some range. So even though I love fluted, I probably wouldn't consider it here. I don't even talk about full bore, because, my God, people that put full bore on hand cannons, dog, I can't take it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, probably, even though I'm a handling guy and I really want handling, it'd be a handling or a range masterwork. If it were me, I'd probably go a handling or range masterwork. I'd go small bore probably, so that therefore I'd get some range and stability. I'd go flared magwell, get a little bit more stability. Definitely go opening shot, and then in the last column, just because at range I'd want to get those precision shots, I think I'd have to go Eye of the Storm. But my hand cannon, man, I really want to feel this gun and have fun with it, would put me towards like a Firefly, which also increases your reload speed, and Incandescent if I wanted to have a little bit more fun with it. I'd probably go Firefly, just because the reload again is so horrible on this gun, even though Incandescent obviously, splody and Scorch.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Incandescent's, generally the more effective explosion, but it doesn't boost your reload. So there's that going for Firefly.
That's the trade-off. But Scorch is, there's a lot of synergy in 3.0, and a lot of actual useful, practical synergy in PvP for scorching your target. So, like if it reloaded fast enough with flared and a hand cannon reloader, I'd probably go Incandescent just to get the splody and build into the Scorch, if I was obviously running like a Gunslinger or one of the other Solar 3.0 subclasses.
Yeah, this is kind of another one of those guns where I feel like, especially if you're taking it into any part of the game other than the Crucible, you've got just endless possible perk combinations. Multiply 7 times 7, you've got 49 possible perk combinations in the third and fourth columns, excuse me. And a lot of them are intriguing.
Yeah.
For Crucible, I do like explosive payload. I feel like I get a lot of use out of it. So for me, I'd go with that, and Eye of the Storm, I think, would be the go-to for reliability.
Agreed.
One thing I like about explosive payload is that the explosion itself doesn't suffer from damage fall off. Mm-hmm. And so, you're still suffering from some damage fall off, because, the 50% of the damage is still the impact. And so you're kind of, you're losing a bit from that, but it does give you a little bit more distance on a gun that doesn't have a ton of range compared to other hand cannons, that doesn't have rangefinder and stuff. And I feel like that frees me to lean heavily into stability. Stability masterwork. I like flared magwell as a pick, because the reload is pretty brutal. And then, small bore is great. I can go polygonal rifling and feel good about it, and so I could even go fluted if I really was just like, hey, I want handling.
Yeah.
But I feel like leaning hard into stability in order to make sure that those shots are staying super accurate every time, because I don't have a ton of range, is going to be a pretty valuable option here. That's also something you can do if you do want to go the Focus Fury way. And you pulled your Discord, and actually somebody suggested Pugilist plus Focus Fury, which was a combo I hadn't considered. But for a hunter who's proc and Radiant using their throwing knives on a regular basis, that's a phenomenal combination.
Yeah.
Lets you keep that 2 crit 1 body going very consistently. And, hopefully you're hitting all your headshots, right? But it just makes that optimal time to kill that much more reliable.
Agreed.
That said, of course, you still have to reload the gun. So
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a snooze. It's a snooze on the reload. You got to build into that one for sure.
So one perk I do like that I think gets slept on a lot in the face of flashier perks is Ensemble. And they threw a whole bunch of juice into Ensemble because it's not flashy, right? It's fairly passive. Just boosts handling and reload speed when allies are nearby. So if you've got at least one ally within 15 meters of you, you get plus 30 handling and plus 40 reload speed. And it lingers for a second and a half. And it gives you just slightly more with the enhanced version. The enhanced version honestly could be better, but it's really, really, really noticeable when it's active. So if you're playing sixes, especially where you're going to have a friend close by a lot of the time, if you're playing threes and you're working as a team and you're just being conscious of staying close enough to get the benefit, but not so close that you both die when Gallarhorn gets fired at you, you can, I think, really kind of milk that perk. It also means you can't run off by yourself, which sometimes is a nice thing to encourage. Lone wolfing it is a tactic for the advanced player, and even then used sparingly. So
true, but I will argue as well. I will argue as well. Now, I mean, you know me. I'd prefer for folks to come at me 1v1 if they can. Yeah. It's just fun. It's a nice challenge for me. I get tapped up all the time. So, but if you played a lot of trials, generally, if there's a split at any point in time, it's a 2-1 split. And there are certain people who are going to be that solo person that flanks. But the two people, that aren't, if that's their playstyle, especially if you have a set team, they're generally going to be together, right? So if you're rocking Ensemble and you are one of those folks that generally fill that role, then Ensemble would work really, really well for you. I wouldn't consider that, oh man, like everybody, because in a 3v3 setting, rarely is the case where 3 people should be split. All but like 3 people should be split, like that's just a formula for any one of them to get 3v1 by the opposing team, or even 2v1. It's just a numbers thing. It's straightforward. So I could see Ensemble like working in that setting, in a competitive setting.
Yeah, I think it's something that you have to be going with because you're consciously choosing to play that style. Obviously, if you're not consciously doing that, it becomes a dead perk, and you should just pick something that's going to passively work all the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, opening shot, explosive rounds, both super solid. There's I always wish there was like some way to make other guns hip fire, like the last word, but I just don't think it can work. Even hip fire grip plus free hand grip plus Eye of the Storm, it's just too hard to do.
Yeah, agreed.
As far as PvE, just blow stuff up, you got Pugilist plus Demolitionist for the just infinite ability energy. You got Explosive Payload with Incandescent or Firefly. It feels like, any combination of those perks is going to be super fun.
Agreed.
All right, well, that's it. That's the primaries. I don't have anything else to say about the primaries. Is there anything that you want to throw in on those, or you want to dive into some special weapons here briefly?
I'll just say, to finish up the primaries, I'll just say that the primaries themselves, you see it, average stats on pretty much all of them, average to even low stability, you said, and on the Doom of Chelchis. I feel like they were being really conscious about making sure that they didn't, drop something that was just straight OP out of the box without actually, kind of building into it or adapting it to a play style, or at the very, very least, making sure that you did master raid for the adept, for the stat bonuses and the adept mods, or at the least do enhanced perks through crafting.
Right.
So once you end up getting that great roll on the adept, or crafting their own great role, then, these weapons, especially paired with certain playstyles and being a little bit more intentional about those playstyles, end up becoming quite good, PvP or PvE. Obviously easier to make these quite good in PvE, whether it's adept, crafted or not. But yeah, I thought they've done a great job, kind of being conscious of that, because Palindrome just dropping as a stat monster is just, you could have a 3 out of 5 Palindrome and be out there tapping me up from way more range than I generally am going to have on a hand cannon going into the Crucible, right? I like my handling. I like my stability.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I like the thoughtfulness there, and the fact that PvE still fantastic, pretty much out of the box. PvP got to build into it a little bit. And I respect that.
Yeah, I felt
not
like
an easy balance.
I felt like they really did find kind of the path for these weapons to make them just straight up super fun PvE and in the game generally outside of the Crucible. But yeah, in the Crucible, there's ways to make it happen.
Yeah,
right?
There's ways
to get there, but you have to work for it a little more. Yeah, so that kind of works out for an in-game weapon. I hope we see more of that down the road and less straight stat monsters.
Yeah, I'll double down on exactly what you said. Just less. Now, I'm not saying no straight stat monsters. I'm not saying, we shouldn't just have a gun out the box that season is just like, wow, that's actually really fun. That's actually really effective. That's really, high ease of use. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm just, saying, not all of them, right? Not all of them.
I agree with that. Well, let's quickly touch on some special weapons here, because there's a few more things I want to try to talk about before we wrap this episode up. But Midha's Reckoning, the high impact fusion rifle, its arc. The high impact fusion rifles natively are killing in 1.09 seconds with 4 bolts at 10 resilience, 1.06 seconds with 3 bolts at 9 resilience and below. So, pretty consistently 3, but being aware of healing and of overshields and all that stuff, right? Like you pretty much want to be landing your bolts. That said, for all they're slow out of the box, they do pack a pretty big damage punch. And if you can catch somebody with the full burst, pretty good odds they're toast, no matter what they've got going on. So as far as the perk combos and all of that, like I'm almost hesitant to get too deep into it because this has been covered so thoroughly by other people.
Yeah.
Lego.
Yeah, right.
So like I almost kind of want to just like, briefly touch on some stuff that I like and just say, hey, like maybe we're not going to dive quite as deep on this particular episode for this particular gun. Maybe we'll come back at a future episode and we'll talk specifically about fusion rifles and revisit, this is something I did last season. I talked specifically about a given weapon archetype, the best weapons with folks like yourself, Physics, and, people who were kind of specialists in various weapons that were competitive in the Crucible. And this season, I'm going the other way and going back to covering the full set so we can say, hey, this weapon's like not great, so people know. And so maybe season 19 will come back and we'll do some more in depth. Is Midha's Reckoning still the best in season 19? Well, we'll find out then.
Well, I think it's great in particular for fusion rifles because fusion rifles are likely to get touched again in the next half season to a season. I think so. So I think that's a great way to look at this weapon in particular. And then also, what was I going to say? I was also going to say that it just leaves some content on the table too. So that's kind of nice. Yeah. And content on the table, for exactly what you said, specifically for folks that are kind of like experts in that area. Of which, fusion rifles is probably the archetype in this list of weapons from Kingfall that I'm least familiar with, that I just let other folks, kind of cover.
Yeah, that's fair. Fusion rifles are complicated. As anybody in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord knows, trying to understand how fusion rifles work in the game is, not dissimilar to lying down outside in your yard in the grass and just staring up at the sky all day, and just like every 15 minutes somebody comes out and just kicks you in the ribs. So it's really pretty brutal trying to work out the details of these guns.
Is it more brutal fusion rifles or shotguns though? Pellet shotguns.
Fixed spreads cannot come soon enough, man. Cannot come soon enough.
Yo, I hear you. I'm right there with you.
I almost want them even if they do break stuff elsewhere in the game. Yeah, that will make so many things better. But that's neither here nor there. We don't have a shotgun to talk about today. Midha's Reckoning. What I'm looking for on this gun is probably something like backup plan plus tap the trigger, where I'm just like, my goal is to just hit the full burst every single time. It's not firing as many shots. It doesn't kick nearly as hard as the rapid fires or even the adaptives, where you've got, more shots coming out, causing the gun to kick more. It's a lot easier to control these bursts. Tap the trigger just makes it even easier. And, backup plan gives you a pretty significant increase to rate of fire. So it's a 30% faster charge rate for 4 seconds after swapping to the weapon. It does penalize you 20% decrease to damage, but it also sets the handling to 100. So you're swapping and ADSing like snapping your fingers. It's lightning fast. It gives you something along the lines of a 0.75, 0.76 second time to kill with 4 bolts at any resilience. So it's pretty consistent, pretty easy to understand, pretty straightforward. That said, there's a ton of perk combinations on here that get very, very difficult to calculate the total effects of. You can get crazy and combine backup plan with kickstart, which is a super timing sensitive play, but also like crazy powerful. Where you're hitting something like a 0.67 second time to kill with 4 bolts at every resilience, 3 at lower resiliences, and you can do it, very aggressively, right? Because you're swapping.
It's a run and gun.
Yes, swapping, sprinting, spraying, swapping back to your primary, and then just repeating it again next time you have to go around a corner. So Midha's Reckoning has a lot going on. It's also got Successful Warm-Up, which is just an insanely effective perk for winning 1v2s. It's a 37.5% boost to charge rate after getting a kill. So again, if you backup plan, get the kill, Successful Warm-Up is now active. You're killing in less than 2/3 of a second with full damage on Successful Warm-Up. And so it's just a pretty nutty gun. And in PvE, it's got Surrounded. It's got Reservoir Burst, which is just really, really fun on fusion rifles. For anybody who's like not used Null Composure in PvE in a while, like take Midha's Reckoning out there with Reservoir Burst and watch everything explode. It's great.
Yep. And keep in mind that with Runneth Over, right, you get the overflow magazine, and therefore, you get the synergy with Reservoir Burst there as well. You just get a lot of Reservoir Burst shots.
Yes, you do. Yeah, it's really nice. I like Field Prep in PvE for extra ammo, in Reserve for faster reload while crouching. High impact frames, actually, this is something that's often kind of forgotten. They're more accurate when stationary and aiming down sights. And if you're going to be holding still, you might as well crouch. So that's often kind of forgotten with all high impact frame weapons. That's true.
Didn't know that.
Holding still makes them more accurate.
Huh.
Or, to say it another way, of course, moving while firing them makes them less accurate.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that.
Is that true on shotguns as well?
So shotguns actually don't have a high impact frame. They have an aggressive frame.
An aggressive frame. Got you. Okay. Interesting.
They don't actually have the high impact, which is what, they added a whole bunch of archetypes when they launched Destiny 2 that kind of made it, made it interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of little things that are easy to gloss over.
True. I remember Mercules was on the show recently, of course, and he was talking specifically about kind of the niche of high impact frame fusion rifles and how they may end up kind of just rolling them out and rolling some of those perks into current sub archetype or sub family fusion rifles, if I remember correctly. So it seems that they've got their eye on them for one reason or another, not necessarily because they're OP per se, but yeah. Yeah,
I'll be curious to see if they do end up touching fusions, whether to kind of more clearly define the different fusion families, or if they just stop making, some as they've done with submachine gun archetypes, and they did it with Coriolis Force, right? They made it and then they never made another one.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but that's all I've got to say about Midhas. I know you didn't have a lot you wanted to add, but we can just talk about Defiance real quick here. Defiance of of Yasmin, 90 RPM.
Otherwise known as Defiance of Aim Assist from D1, if anybody recognizes that that phrase.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, man, I love Defiance in D1.
That thing did miss, man.
Clean, open sight, that sweet aim assist. It felt so good.
It really did.
It's one of the first sniper rifles that I actually used and felt like I could snipe with. So Defiance is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Now, stat-wise in Destiny 2, again, like the others, I would describe it as among the adaptives, it's kind of average to slightly above average. It has a little more range, pretty average in terms of stability. It's on the high end of handling, but there are a lot of other adaptive snipers that have the same or better handling stat. The aim assist, again, is on the high end, but again, there are a bunch of other adaptive snipers that have the exact same aim assist. Now, it does have that 4.0 zoom, which is a standout. In terms of comparables, you've got Beloved is virtually stat for stat. Oh, it's almost the same gun. Beloved's actually, raw stats-wise, probably slightly worse. It's got a little bit slower reload, I guess, maybe. I don't know. You could argue they're virtually identical. You're not going to be able to tell the difference.
That sight, man, the sight on Defiance of Yasmin though is just S+ tier though.
It is.
That's the thing about it for me. Is just that sight is just so open, clean. Even though it's got it's got the imagery in there. It's just not a distraction whatsoever. It's just, it literally feels like you're shooting a scout rifle. With Defiance of Yasmin in PvP or PvE, it's really, really clean.
Yeah.
Really clean.
Yeah, it feels really easy to use this weapon, which is, for me, honestly, one of the biggest things about a sniper rifle. If I'm going to try to snipe, if I'm going to put myself through that, it has to look and feel good. I almost just don't even care about the stats or the perks. It's what is the sight picture? How does it feel? Defiance of Yasmin hits it. It hits. And it's
most definitely.
It's got good stats. Like I said, it's average to above average, which means it's basically just top or, kind of standard in every category. So nothing to say against it. And perks wise, it's got some solid perks. Talk to me. What are we looking for on the perks?
Oh, hands down. Snapshot opening shot is crazy.
Yes,
Snapshot
sir.
opening shot is crazy. Enhanced snapshot opening shot is crazy. So my question I had, hold on. So faster time to aim down sights. So if everybody remembers, snapshot got nerfed a little while back, specifically on snipers, right? Specifically on snipers
for everybody, but I think but then extra on snipers.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember all the details right now off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I wasn't ready for that question.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought of.
It did get nerfed.
True. And so I'm wondering, and I know snipers took it extra hard. Again, I can't remember the extra.
I think snipers got a general kind of handling nerf in addition to snapshot getting nerfed. I don't know. We're getting off topic.
Gotcha. Yeah, true. So my point was, my initial question, maybe somebody else can think about this or whatnot, is does enhanced snapshot, make it feel like snapshot again? But I'll put that off to the side for you folks. But snapshot opening shot feels incredible on this gun. Opening shot feels incredible. It feels like you're hitting shots you should not be hitting with enhanced opening shot. And obviously, again, snapshot is just top tier and has always been top tier on a sniper. And especially once quick draw got nerfed, snapshot just became the go-to, the absolute go-to on sniper rifles above all else.
Yeah.
Because we just want our sniper rifles to be snappy. Everybody wants to go for that quick scope. It's that power fantasy on snipers for PvP in particular. So I could see a couple of the other perks being cool if you're not deeply into the snapshot vibe, right? You could rock with the no distractions to kind of continue to build into the anti-flinch meta. It's interesting. I'll stick with PvP for a second, but. You got the Firefly, and everybody remembers, hopefully, that incandescent on, was it Beloved? That you could get incandescent on? Yeah, I've definitely seen a couple people explode right next to me with it's kind of a slept on perk. Again, if you're willing to give up whatever's in that column, but it's definitely funny. So as far as PvE, kind of sleepers, ensemble, just like you said, especially if you're internet pairing it with a Vorpal. Maybe not so much Vorpal, obviously, because you probably want like a Focus Fury or a Firing Line in particular. Vorpal's usually that solo perk, right? Yeah. And ensemble, obviously, you need some, a teammate, a fire team member with you. So I could see, I think you mentioned it, of Firing Line, Focus Fury, Vorpal, maybe in those unique situations. If you're not going to go for the opening shot, you could obviously go for the enhanced moving target, but there's no reason, I feel, to go for enhanced moving target over opening shot at this point. Hopefully, I'm always crossing my fingers, hoping that they don't nerf my perks that basically allow hand cannons. This is kind of a side note. I'll try to get it over with quickly. That allow hand cannons to still compete in things like pulse rifle metas. If we didn't have rangefinder, if we didn't have opening shot, that in this meta right now, hand cannons would almost all be completely irrelevant. So I don't want them to nerf it on snipers then either, right? So. But those are the perks kind of off the top of my head. And of course, in PvE, you could also, consider something like a shoot to loot or a lead for gold as well. Yeah,
it's not starved for fun ammo choices and reload choices for PvE. And obviously with Runneth over going on as well, it feels like kind of a natural choice if you want to have a lot of shots and have a lot of those shots give you a damage buff, right? Firing Line's phenomenal for raids and, those DPS phases in strikes where you have the opportunity to stand close to your allies. Vorpal, of course, it's consistent, right? 15% buff for special weapons against bosses, so it's always going to work. And sometimes consistency is better than having the optimal choice. It is not as good in PvP, unfortunately. It's only either a 10 or 20% buff in PvP, so it's not necessarily going to let you be dropping any given super. So you got to be aware of that. Of course, as fast moving as some supers are these days, it maybe isn't the best choice to be trying to snipe them anyway, unless that's just you. I don't know.
Go for those clips.
Yeah, no, I feel like you're almost better off just trying to primary them down with your teammates at that point.
I mean, considering 40 to 50% boost on damage on a primary with Vorpal, yeah.
Yeah, so, but snapshot, opening shot, how could you not? Moving target's just straight up inferior to opening shot, especially on snipers.
Okay.
Moving target's giving you plus 10 aim assist and a 3% reduced movement speed penalty while you're aimed down sights and strafing. And that aim assist, I mean, not that it matters, but the aim assist buff is only active while aiming down sights. Opening shot is always active. So even if you're hip firing if you're trying to hip fire melee, your sniper rifle, opening shot still helps you.
Yeah.
And it's 20 aim assist, so flat out just twice the buff of moving target. But then
honestly, I forgot about that.
It also gives you extra range. Also reduces the accuracy cone size, making your shot go straighter. Also reduces accuracy cone growth if you need a follow-up shot or if you've got another target walking out into that lane.
Yeah.
Opening shot is just really, really good. The only time it's occasionally worse, I guess, is if you just have a whole bunch of targets, because it does have a cooldown, 3.1 seconds. But I don't know. Let's not get too deep into first world problems here. Let's focus on getting the first kill.
Well, the only time it's arguable is, I'll just keep it general, is primary weapons. Primary weapons.
Yeah.
So, for example,
for sure on primaries, I would.
Yeah, moving target's going to work. My hand cannon, all three shots, right? And it's going to give me that movement, that strafe speed, which is also useful on primary weapons. But on special weapons, not so much.
Yeah, on specials, it's opening shot all day. But that is the exception. Is for primary, even though it's a much smaller benefit. Moving target it's
better synergy with exactly
every shot.
Yeah.
So so then it becomes the better choice. Okay, well that's just about it. We've got one more weapon to make mention of here. Qullim's Terminus or Qullim's Terminus or Qullim's Terminus. I'm not really sure what way to go with this name.
I always called it Qullim's, and I don't think that's right because there's no I after the U. I don't know.
I almost want to go like Qullim, but we're just adding all kinds of letters. It's a machine gun.
Yep.
Doesn't do a whole lot for you in PvP. It has a lot of fun perks. Totally worth having for PvE, but I'm going to leave those recommendations to the folks who specialize in giving you PvE recommendations. So if you want to hear about Qullim's Terminus, I don't even know.
I'm going to go with Qullim. I'm literally going to call it Qullim anytime now.
If you want to hear about Qullim's Terminus, go listen.
Or Qullim, or you could Qullim Terminus. Could be Qullim.
There we go. All right, I like it. Qullim's Terminus. Go listen to Podcast versus Enemies, the King's Fall breakdown. There are some timestamps in the descriptions for that episode if you want to skip. Say an hour and a half in to actually just get to the weapon breakdowns. If you already know the encounters and you want to skip past that, you can. Totally fair. That's what I would do. We've got a few minutes left here before we have to wrap this episode. You had some guns you wanted to point folks to, some guns that maybe haven't been in the spotlight as much lately, but that you're really enjoying. I want to give you a chance to share those.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it tight, of course, time-wise. I think there were 4 or 5, but I'll just stick to 3 that are immediately on the top of my head. Everybody, a lot of people know me as a Hawkmoon main. I've kind of put that down for the side for 2 reasons. I don't feel like in 6s right now, Hawkmoon is the best hand cannon. I will say that. I'll just leave it at that. But I've been playing a lot of 3s, whether it be my illPhysics Labs, which is our community take on scrims.
Yeah.
With a community designed rule set. And I know you said, we wanted to mention that for a second, and I'll just use that as a segue into that because that'll be quick.
Yeah.
But illPhysics Labs are our branded, my community's branded scrims, 4v4 usually, but sometimes, folks get into 3v3s or rumbles. But the key point is the rule set, right? Everybody has their own rule set. And so my rule set is community designed. It's something that I had a guiding hand in, especially with regards to the goals of it. But my community had a very heavy hand as well. I would argue an equal hand in kind of determining specifics to ensure that those goals were met, right?
Sure.
Because there are different perspectives on what fun is, what rewarding is, what oppressive is. And so the two biggest goals by which we define that rule set was 1, rewarding gameplay. So an example of that is no Lorentz, right? I mean, just nobody enjoys dying to that weapon, you know? Like nobody enjoys dying to that weapon. So that's a good example of that. So rewarding gameplay. When you die, you feel like, okay, I died for a reason. I can see what I can fix with that. And it's not particularly annoying how I died. And I feel like I had a chance. Next time I have a better chance because maybe I know how to counter that a little bit better, or at the very least compete against what I fought. And the second thing is just ensuring that it's a learning atmosphere. Much of my content I was talking about before has always focused around just sharing my experience and making sure that I'm not pretentious and talking about stuff that I don't know about. That's something that's big with me as well. But stuff that I do and stuff that, I double down on in my gameplay. I try to share that knowledge so that folks get a little bit better at the game. Improvement focused folks get a little bit better at the game a lot faster than I got better at the game because I generally just did it by experience personally.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of illPhysics Labs. Coming back around to the weapons that I'm enjoying this season 3. I've been having a lot of discussions online with regards to Thorn. I think in this particular meta, I don't know about the next meta. Thorn, it might be about that time for a catalyst. It's really the biggest usage gap for Thorn is getting to the remnants. It's not particularly hard to get into the engagement range for it, even though Thorn just does not have a lot of range. And in a rangy meta like this one right here, mid to long range, Thorn, it becomes difficult. Now, you can do that, of course, in 6s or in 3s, and particularly in 3s where you're not facing as many opponents and you have a little bit more time and space to move around the map and to define that engagement distance at a distance that is advantageous or optimal for Thorn. But it's about getting to the remnants. It's about actually being able to use that exotic perk. That's where the gap is really defined, because you can't just haphazardly leap out to try to get that remnant in order to make the gun better. Because right now, even at base stats, it's fairly average, I would say. Just maybe slightly above average, just because it does flinch a little bit, in my opinion. but it's getting to the remnants. And so I've suggested, I won't go into it here, we could talk for days about this, but I've suggested, and my community suggested, a couple of different things for a catalyst in order to kind of fill that gap in the Thorn gameplay, in the Thorn like gameplay loop. But yeah, Thorn is still super fun, super awesome. When you get on that roll, especially in 6s with the Thorn perk, it becomes just juiced. It just becomes absolutely super fun to use, and anybody from D1 is going to get that feeling again as well when that train kind of starts rolling. So that's one. 2, I'll start with the one I can get through quickly. I didn't know Reese was nice like that. I never got a great Reese Walker roll. We're talking about the shotgun from Iron Banner, lightweight shotgun. I didn't know it was like that because I just never got a great roll. Even because I knew we'd talk about this, like I know the stat line for it, 70, even at 72 range, which is what I have. 72 range. It's like whatever the range perk. What is it? Iron Reach, and I can't remember what other perks I have that give it a little bit more range. But even at 72 range, that thing is the most consistent outside of my God Roll Wastelander. It is the most consistent like shotgun in the kinetic slot for me, and I was incredibly surprised by that, because I've struggled with consistency on kinetic shotguns. We've spoken before how disappointing the crafted aggressive, the Hake shotgun is in the top spot, even if you end up crafting it with some really nice like handling perks such as, elemental capacitor, and it's not threat detector. I think it's just elemental capacitor, but either way, disappointing, that Hake shotgun. Crazy. Reese is just very, very nice, and I was glad to kind of rediscover that and to put some shards and some time into Iron Banner with Eruption that just recently came around. Fantastic new game mode, by the way. Great job, Bungie. But yeah, I was surprised pleasantly that Reese has now become my main shotgun in the kinetic spot. So really, really happy about that.
Yeah.
That's the second weapon, and then I rolled back around for that third weapon. I've rolled back around to my favorite weapon before Hawkmoon, which is Sunshot. Sunshot's just been really doing it this season, like hard. I feel like it wasn't doing it like that the last couple seasons, but this season it's been going super hard for me, and it's the weapon that I've gone off with the last 2 Trials weekends for sure. Javelin, I started off Javelin with Hawkmoon, same thing I did with Midtown, and I rolled right back around to Sunshot because Sunshot is just doing it. And so what I was talking about specifically online about Sunshot, hold on, because I could just pull that up, is somebody asked me, man, any particular reason for Sunshot? I haven't, and I said, Sunshot was the favorite gun before Hawkmoon. It's the only 150 RPM hand cannon. Remember what I was talking about with explosive payload and 180 and 200 scouts? It's just, if you're able to hit them more frequently with that explosive payload, it just continues to flinch them. It's oppressive sometimes. But in this anti-flinch meta, Sunshot is doing the most for me, because folks just aren't getting flinched like they were before. So I can be pretty accurate with the 150 hand cannon, with this 150 hand cannon, to make that happen. Speaking of that as well, it's only got 60 aim assists, which is one of the reasons why it is not the high ease of use weapon that would make usage stats go up. But that 60 aim assist makes 3 taps really rewarding. It makes hitting your shots really rewarding, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's got fantastic range, stability, and handling, so it's just a stat monster amongst 150 hand cannons. Y'all remember how stat crunched they were, basically? I mean, especially because they were great for stability and handling, but, above average in that realm, but they weren't the greatest in range. So this thing, like, kind of has it all. And then on top of that, it has explosive payload, right? So you're still getting that 22. So yeah, explosive payload counters that anti-flinch meta, specifically against snipers, which is the bane of my existence as someone who doesn't snipe and will just slide out on anybody, sniper or otherwise. So it's been fantastic for that. I've gotten sniped a lot less, especially in a mode like elimination, where you get sniped, you're just dead. You can't, no revive for you. Make things go boom, of course. So just another great perk just on top of that. Solar synergy with Ember of Tempering, which, remember I was talking about, was the fragment where you get stacks of recovery per solar kill. I think it's solar weapon or solar ability. So it kind of stacks with that. And yeah, I'm just a bit of a hipster, so I like using things that people aren't necessarily using, becoming really, really good at them, and folks end up kind of tuning into the content because not a lot of people are doing Sunshot at a high level, even though a lot of us absolutely adore the weapon. So
I'm glad you brought Sunshot up because last time we talked about it, I had some bad info, and so I want to take a second to correct some of that info. I had some info that I guess hadn't been updated in a while, and I hadn't caught that something had changed or that it had been wrong in the first place. And so recently I was able to have a good conversation with some folks in Discord, getting some testing done with Mossy, who's become the damage calculation expert. His outgoing damage scaling spreadsheet calculates exact damage for all kinds of scenarios for everything in the game. It's wild. But he's been able to help fine-tune the decimals on a lot of the PvP weapons with pretty good accuracy. Every now and then, Destiny is just weird, and
yeah,
but we're a lot closer to being correct than we were before. So big shout out to him. So Sunshot, we were able to now estimate the explosion damage is dealing almost exactly 21. The body impact is dealing almost exactly 21, and the head impact is dealing 46 and a third, approximately. So that leaves your crit damage with the impact plus the explosion at 67.3 roughly, and your body damage at almost exactly 42. So that's sometimes good to know. Radiant, unfortunately, does not let you 2 crit one body with Sunshot, but you can 3 crit, obviously, at all resiliences and with a 150, so it's a bit faster. It's a weapon that I really like. I always want to put the time in to be good with, but boy, it'll kick you in the face.
Yeah, it is not the easiest hand cannon to get nice with. Yeah. I agree. Yeah,
but yeah, props for putting the time in on that, because it is super rewarding. Like that's one that just stays on my list of figure out how to not suck with Sunshot, because it's got a lot of stuff going for it. Like, honestly,
it does. It's an exotic. If they
ever make it easier to use, it will instantly skyrocket, which
let's not ever let that happen.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, y'all don't want that, man. You folks would prefer to see Thorn over Sunshot becoming meta like that. Trust me on that.
No.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that was a good opportunity for me to correct some incorrect info, which I like to do when I get the chance. Yeah, I appreciate it. Those are all some good suggestions. I'd love to see a Thorn catalyst that pulls the fragments to you
at a faster rate or something.
Aggressively.
Yeah, we were talking about,
and maybe just some nice stat buffs.
Yeah, I was talking about. I don't think it should get any more range with it. Just because I think that would probably break it. People might not think that right now because we're playing on a lot of large maps, but just think about if Thorn had even more range, 5, 10, on Javelin, it'd go crazy, and there's a lot of, you still got Endless, you still got, Dead Cliffs is a relatively close range map as well, so you probably don't want that, but what I did suggest was that, you gave it a little bit more stability, because folks on controller were saying that the stability is it's arguable. Some people say the stability's fine. A lot of people say the stability not so great. So I would say plus 5 to 10 stability, and then a killing wind type perk. So that's what I was talking about, trying to fill the gap between, okay, I got that first kill, now I'm trying to push up to get my remnant, right? But I want folks to be rewarded for continuing to push with the weapon itself, So give it some sort of unique killing wind perk, because exotics, they deserve something unique, as opposed to just giving it killing wind, for example. And Bungie's fantastic with that, so they can get way more creative with it and out of the box than me, and maybe they can even make it something that fits in with the lore, fits in with that weapon specific, I don't know, or Weapons of Sorrow. Either way, that'd be dope, is to get something like a Killing Wind-esque perk so that folks could kill their way or could push their way to the Remnant just by getting damage and pushing people off of that Remnant. So it'd be fantastic either way to get some additional boost to the movement or the longevity of the Remnant. so that folks had more of an opportunity. But yeah, what I don't want to see, honestly, is them increase the time of the damage perk. I think that'd be probably the worst way to go with it, because again, it's really strong when you get it rolling. You don't want people to have the ability for that damage perk to, I just don't think that would be the way to go about it myself.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, we don't need like Ace of Spades level buffs with damage over time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a timer for a reason.
Yeah. So
push weapon.
All right. Well, that is the episode, I believe. We are running right up against the time, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it here, folks. Thank you for tuning in. This has been an absolute blast. Tony, thank you for coming back, man.
It's always a pleasure, man. Seriously.
I appreciate it.
I love being here.
And we'll definitely do this again. Until then, tell folks where they should go find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, you can find me at illPhysics in most places. So illPhysics on Twitter, on Twitch, YouTube as well. Even I say it all the time. I need to do a little bit more with YouTube, of course. It's just streaming just exhausts me, man. Yeah. I edit all my stuff. I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job to get sleep and do. But either way, illPhysics on most platforms. The platforms I'm most on are Twitter and Twitch, then YouTube. But you can find my link tree in my bio on Twitter, and you can find every place that all of my spaces that I'm present. So
perfect. Yep, and we'll have some links in the description for this episode as well. Whether you're listening to this on Apple or Android or YouTube or anywhere, just scroll down a little bit there and you'll find those links. And you'll also find some links to hear more from me and the rest of the Destiny Massive Breakdowns crew. So you can scroll down and click those for the PvE pod, for the Star Wars pod, for the Patreon. You can also just hit up www.destinymassivebreakdowns.com to find easy links to all the shows, to the Discord, to the Twitter, all the places basically that you might want to be. And of course, this podcast is also playing on YouTube now. So be sure to go drop us a subscribe so you can have that extra option if you want to play it on YouTube in the background. YouTube is the one platform that is on all platforms, right? It's everywhere. So very convenient. And I'm happy to finally get that added. Been a long time in the works. Still not perfect, but we're going to keep trying to make it better. And this has been episode 277 of Destiny Massive Breakdowns. My guest today, illPhysics. Thank you again.
No, thank you. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you folks having me back.
And I've been your host, Kid Ketcha. Until next time, peace.